Lajuan, I think you just, there you go.
I don't know what happened. Somehow I managed to mute myself. So whenever Nick is ready, we can go ahead and start the presentation. So every month we start our presentations the same way. In the past, the demolition program had received a significant amount of kind of kickback because of our lack of engagement with the community. So we established some pillars that we believe we needed to focus in on in everything that we do. So our pillars are to be dependable, data-driven, and deliver. So under dependable, our goal is to gain your trust. And we have to do that by being consistent and accountable. We're data-driven. Our department, outside of being fully action service department, we have to provide a significant amount of data to report out to the various agencies and departments that have interest in the work that we do. We also make that information available to the residents. So whether it's the maps, are just general statistics and data that we produce, or facts and figures so that you can just see our progress, we're willing to provide that to you. And then deliver. In the proposal in resolution, there were several promises that were made, and we're committed to ensuring that those promises are kept. So whether it's jobs for Detroiters or safer neighborhoods, we're committed to ensuring that those promises are kept. So compliance. I'm sorry, this cough. The Detroit Demolition Department, we have a unit that's dedicated to monitoring the compliance and enforcing discipline on our contractors who do not follow department policies or procedures. We have two general types of discipline. So one is a letter of discipline. This is a violation that the department issues, and it's typically for failures to meet administrative invoices and performance responsibilities. Contractors may be disqualified from bidding on or being awarded new contracts. And in several cases, it could lead up to termination. But it's all dependent upon the level of violation that's been substantiated, and it could be the volume. So where it might be a very small instance, if you have 7 small instances, it will be enough for us to progressively suspend you for a very long time from the program. The other type of violations are health and safety violations, and they're issued to a contractor for violating local, state, or federal health and safety requirements. Infractions can be reported by 3D field staff, by EGLE inspectors, or by Detroit residents. So if you happen to witness something and you bring it to our attention, we respond by sending out a field inspector or field liaison that verifies the activity. And then it could escalate up to ultimately being a health and safety violation. And a contractor may be disqualified from being awarded new contracts, or in the severest of cases could be terminated for current work, as well as the suspension all the way up to complete disbarment from the program. And so what we have been able to do is make available our running 12-month discipline report, and it's included in our monthly newsletter. So if you're interested in that, we'll talk about how you sign up for the newsletter, or we're doing it now. Sorry, in our other presentations, we do it later. So you can sign up for the monthly newsletter at DetroitMI/demolition. You can see the status of violations that were issued to any contractor, not just the Beniteau properties, but any violations that we've issued to contractors across, with contracts across the city. So in this area, we've had 4 violations. So in October 13th, the City of Detroit's Demolition Department reported to EGLE that an individual was observed removing suspected asbestos-containing plaster from 4034 Beniteau and dumping the plaster onto demolition pile located at 4040 Beniteau, which is actually the property directly next door where a demolition had been completed. On October 14th, the City of Detroit's demolition program issued a stop work order for the project. On the 9th of November, EGLE issued a violation notice to the Detroit Demolition Department. And then on November 17th, the Demolition Department subsequently issued a health and safety violation to Green Environmental Services, a subcontractor of Detroit Next, who was the demolition contractor performing the demolitions on Beniteau. And the cleanup work was ultimately reassigned to other contractors. In the nutshell, there was an issue that took place at that particular property. We stopped all work for that particular contractor, which was Detroit Next, to ensure that this particular situation was an isolated case and not a widespread case along several properties. We were able to perform our own investigation and determine that this instance only occurred at this particular location. So additional violations that were issued in this area were on March 8th of 21. Detroit Demolition Department issued Detroit Next a letter of discipline as records in Salesforce indicated that Detroit Next had 4 open holes over 30 days since knocked. This is a violation of the contractor policy, the discipline policy of 2016-1. The properties in question were 3998, 38, 39, 38, 43, and 25, 72 Beniteau. On March 23rd of 21, the Demolition Department also issued Detroit Next another letter of discipline as records in Salesforce indicated that Detroit Next had 2 open holes over 30 days since knocked. And those properties were 3839 and 3843 Beniteau. Both ultimately had final grade approvals on 4/9. So let's speak to this really quickly. Contractors are required to update their information as far as their status inside of an application called Salesforce, and that's how we track their data. If they have completed work but not entered it into Salesforce, we still receive it as the work not being completed. And so we have a timeline in which they must complete certain activities, and it triggers for a letter of discipline action to take place if they don't have or if they don't meet that timeline date. That's part of the case. Part of the case was they failed to complete the work, and part of the case was a failure to enter the data. Either which way it went, it was still treated as if they had failed to complete the work, and so that's why the letters of discipline were issued. So our FCA progress as of 5/25, we have 247 homes that have been demolished. We have 28 homes that are currently contracted for demolition, and another 55 homes are currently out for bid. We anticipate that each of these homes will be completely demolished by the end of 2022. So this is an example of our site selection strategy. Under Release A, which was the proposal in Release A group, we prioritize homes by demolition candidates that either were surrounded by occupied structures, so a demo candidate in the middle with 2 occupied homes on both sides, or a demolition candidate with an occupied structure on one side. In some cases were demolition candidates that surrounded an occupied structure, and those were priority as well. From there, the Demolition Department extended outward from the initial bobs, oboes, and bobs, and targets to identify 23 groupings of 60 homes in proximity of those demolition candidates, and the target of 1,380 properties was ultimately met. So these additional packages are being created that include all the other homes with existing surveys. So we have a stock of properties that we're aware of that we've had survey work done on in the past. That amount was about, I can't remember what, was it 4,700, Tim? Or 43?
About 3,800.
So we had initially the 3,800. We've already put out 1,330 or 1,331, and we're working through the balance of those properties. Once we've completed working through the balance of those survey properties, we'll then shift our strategy back to the oboes, the bobs, and the bows, because we'll have new survey properties that will now meet this criteria. So you can find Release A addresses, and as well as for the demolitions and for the rehab candidates, you can find them on our website. So if you go to detroitmi.gov/demolition, under the proposal in section, there's two different boxes. One box is for the preservation candidates and the other box is for the demolition candidate. You click whichever one you're interested in, and a spreadsheet will appear that has all of the addresses listed in alphabetical order by street. You're able to print those lists down because during the course of us talking with communities throughout the proposal and process, we learned that while we had lots of information on our website, they weren't able to print it and actually use it. So we made sure it was in a format that could be printed and used. We also continue to have our text message update number. So if you text the address that you're interested in to 313-254-DEMO, which is 3366, you'll receive notification about the properties to be demolished within 500 feet of the address that you provided. Now you want to be mindful that this text message service only talks about or only provides you with those addresses within a 2-week time period. So if the demolition is not going to happen in 2 weeks, you won't get the notification. But if you're looking for demolitions that are planned to happen, you need to look at the other list. And although I mentioned before that the other list was for Release A, we will have all the future releases available as well. So what to expect? So prior to knocking a home, contractors are required to remove any accessible hazardous related or regulated materials. Those materials are removed from the home, are properly disposed of in a Type 2 landfill, and abated materials removed from the home are typically abated materials removed from the home. So that's, we changed this in another.
Oh, did you freeze for everyone else?
Hello? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Give it just a moment.
Yeah.
Is
Oh, there she is.
all of that debris is removed with the home as it's taken down.
Sorry, Lajuan, you actually froze at the third bullet point for abated materials removed from the home or placed behind the home.
Yeah, because it threw me off too, because the abated materials are not placed behind the home. The clean material, the material where the abated material have been removed, so it could be wood pieces or things of that nature, that's what's placed behind the home. We've got an error in our presentation. That's what's placed behind the home. And the abated materials, the regulated or hazardous materials is removed separately in a different process. So I just want to we need to make that clarity on the other slides.
Yep, we'll fix that.
So this is an extreme case, but this is exactly what an abatement should look like. So this is a property at 14336 Marlowe. This is the rear of the house. And yes, that is debris stacked up to the second story. And like I said, this is an extreme case, but this is what it should look like. This material is placed in the backyard. It is not visible from the street. At the end of each working day, the contractor must ensure that the sidewalks, the streets, the alleyways, and surrounding properties are free of dust, debris, and other potential nuisances. And once the house is knocked, all of this debris is removed at the time of demolition. Now, this is what it should not look like. This is the exact same property. And what the contractor did was he was in a rush and he wanted to move stuff out of his way. So some of this is debris that he pulled out of the house, and some of this is just debris that people just dump here because it was convenient. But this should not be. You should not see materials scattered on the side or the front of the home. Contractors are not allowed to park their containers in front of any occupied structures. They are allowed to park their containers in front of the demo candidate, but not in front of an occupied structure. And just in general purposes, when contractors are on the block to do work, they should be behaving as good neighbors. So if you observe a contractor who is, parked the wrong way on the street, he's eating his lunch and he chucks his bag out the window, that's not a good look. We don't approve of it. If you see it, feel free to contact us at 313-224-4737, or you can contact your district manager. Either which way it goes, we will make sure that we address it with that contractor. We impress upon our contractors that we have to be good neighbors when we go into the communities to do work. Also, prior to the demolition, you should see 3 calendar days prior to the demolition, the contractor will distribute city-provided public health and safety materials. These are notoriously known as the door hangers, and they're placed within 400 feet of the assigned demo candidate. Contractors must also place 3 lawn signs on the property, notifying the public that the demolition will take place. So on demolition day, what do you expect? Well, we have what's known as the wet, wet, wet method. And that process was developed here in Detroit. That method is intended to keep dust down before, during, and after the demolition to protect residents, and it requires the contractor to do the following. So during the pre-wettings phase, they have to knock a hole in the roof and wet the interior of the attic space for 5 minutes, then wet the entire exterior of the building. During the knockdown, they have to wet the structure as it's being demolished, and during the load out, they must wet the debris as it's being loaded into the waste haulers. So oversight, the demolition department has field liaisons on site for at least 90%. We are striving, as always, to get to 100%. But we see 90% of all the demolitions that take place, and we ensure that the contractors are following this wet, wet, wet method. Each demolition produces a checklist and includes a start and end time to ensure the 5-minute pre-wetting process takes place, as well as the actual knockdown time of the structure. The residents in the neighborhood can always approach a field liaison with any questions or concerns they may have. Our field people are out. I don't know if you all can see Tim Palazzolo's shirt, maybe once the presentation is off. Tim Palazzolo's shirt is what our field liaison shirts look like. So if you ever see our staff out and about and you've got questions or concerns, they're always outside of the demo site. They're never standing inside of the demo zone, so that you'll be able to safely approach them. And they're there to serve you. So if you've got questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to them and ask them whatever questions you have. So this is what the wetting looks like prior to the knockdown. So you see the holes are punched into the roof structure, and the hose is actually spraying the water into the attic space at this time. This is more of the exterior wetting prior to the knockdown. You can clearly see that this exterior material is wet, but they're preparing to go in and take it down. And this is as it's coming down, water still being sprayed onto the structure. What you don't see in this picture is a whole lot of dust flying around. And this is loading it out into the haulers. Still hose is going. So this is the information where you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. Our newsletter is available on the website. It's up to you. You can subscribe and have it sent to you via email, or you can always just go to our website and find the current month's newsletter there. Our team is about 80% vaccinated. So we are advocates. We're strong advocates for vaccination. We have been in the office probably about 90% of the time throughout COVID. We have been following strict COVID safety guidelines in office, but since we've been able to get vaccinated, everybody's been able to enjoy just a little bit of freedom inside the office. So we are strong advocates for getting vaccinated. And just thank you for your time. We have several ways for you to contact us if you have more questions or you have additional concerns. We are also available on Twitter and Facebook, where you can see progress photos. We're very excited about sharing what happens during our demo process, as we just hit our 100th house under proposal in, so we were really excited, and that was a big day for us. But we'll continue to share as much information as we can through our social media outlets, but we'll always be available to answer questions directly if you should have them.
And we can make sure that we share this presentation with everybody so you have it. You don't need to try to rush to write down all the contact information at the last slide. We'll send it out to everybody and make sure that they have it. So But other than that, we're here to answer any questions that you might have. I also know that we received a one-page piece of material from EGLE. We can put that up now. I think, I don't know if Joe or Jeff want to speak to this now, or if you want us to go through questions first. Do you have a preference, Jeff or Joe?
I guess we can wait for questions first. That's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I'm personally concerned that I might lose some of my questions if we move to
Sure.
the other presentation. But I also wanted to open it up to anybody else. Robert, do you have any questions about anything, or anybody else on the call?
Well, right now, I'm just taking in the information. I think I can move to the next step to it.
So and I appreciate all the details. I guess the first question I have is the step-by-step process that you shared. Is that up on the website anywhere? Like
I'm sorry, which one?
that shows like what a demolition should look like and everything. Is that up there?
So it is in various kind of iterations. So we have all of our presentations that we provide to the districts. We do this in smaller chunks. So we started with what abatements look like in maybe, I can't remember, it was like maybe month March. And so now we're to the point where we're talking about the demolitions, but yes, you can find all of that information on our website. It's in just older presentations.
It's helpful to see what they're supposed to look like, right? So
Right.
and so that's helpful. I guess the first question that I came across, because I hadn't thought of it before, but while you're on the line, are any of the, particularly on the Beniteau, are there any preservation projects on Beniteau?
That's a good question. Nick, are you able to pull up? We do have 300 that are, I think it ends up being like 297 or some odd number, that are currently on their way to City Council for approval. I don't know how many of those are in the Beniteau area. If we can't find it really quickly, what we can do is we can do a scan of the area and determine what the potential candidates are too. So, but we could tell you which ones are contracted and which ones are potential candidates.
Okay.
Just a second. I don't see Beniteau mentioned specifically on our current list of the first 300, but I can pull up a quick map of District 4. Just a moment.
And you know what, Nick, I don't want to give them incorrect information. So we'll have our data team actually pull, because we have the map of the priority area, and we'll make sure that we target just that area, and we'll get you the information. We can actually provide you, we could probably provide you the addresses too, but definitely we have some estimated candidates in those areas.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
Sorry, real quick, it's just a high-level map of where the first round of trash outs are in District 4.
So this is just 55 properties, and this is District 4 total.
Yes.
And this actually is available under the District 3, District 4 presentation. We just gave this presentation last night.
I'm trying.
But like I said, we'll
trying to get my
have the
bearings
data
on the
team.
map there.
We'll have the data team actually pull the priority area. We've done that in the past for the demolitions. We can do it for the preservations as well.
Okay, and then I guess one of the benefits of having you all on the call is to inquire about. I know that Chuck, who's I'm not going to put his address out, but I can definitely make sure that he gets in touch with you. But he's kind of what I would refer to as South Beniteau, and I know he had one of the contractors. There was some damage done to his driveway, right? So when they were pulling up in his driveway, or to do the demolition, he had some damage done. So I just wanted to get information about who he should be contacting. I believe he's contacted the district manager, but just wanted to put it out here with everybody on the call that that hasn't been addressed still, and I think it happened, you know, I want to say about 6 months ago or something like that, or maybe it's got to be closer. But who should I have him contact?
You should have him call 224-4737. That's our office. We will send out a field liaison to investigate. Ideally, the best scenario is that we'll have pictures that actually capture his driveway, the before demolition pictures that capture his driveway as well, so we can see that it's not damaged before. But if any resident experiences any type of damage from any of our contractors, it's best to reach out to us immediately. We want to get on top of it as soon as it occurs, so that, you know, one, everybody's still fresh in everybody's memory. And then also we can get as current of the photos as possible. We're doing a much better job of taking before photos of the demo property. A lot of times we capture a lot of the surrounding properties, but sometimes we don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I'm not exactly sure what happened with this particular address, but we definitely will want to look into it and see what could be done.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out there, and it looks like it must have been a large truck or something like that must have backed up and ran up onto his property or something like that, and created that issue. So that helps to have that number. And maybe now that you're aware of that situation, you can help us to advocate on his behalf. I guess the other piece of, like, I guess, primary clarity, and while the information about what a demolition should look like was extremely clear, and I have a better idea with, like, wetting the house and everything else, since it's really the asbestos violations that kind of triggered this entire conversation, right? I'm wondering about what specifically that process looks like. Like, I mean, I know that I've seen what I consider to be some not legal removal of asbestos, with, like, you know, black pickup trucks coming up and bags being thrown into the back and them driving off really quickly. But what should good asbestos removal look like if there is a case where the house has asbestos?
So I'm gonna have to tag team this one with Tim. But I definitely want to talk to you about the violations that were issued to Detroit Next. It wasn't about their removal process. That part was not the issue. The issue was what happened with these two particular individuals who were not hired to do what they were doing. So through our investigation, what we ended up kind of halfway determining, because, you know, you can't really get a straight answer out of day workers, because that's what they ended up being. So Detroit Next had given his actual employee a task to complete, which was picking up debris around some of his other demo locations. The Detroit Next employee determined he had too much to do, and so he found these two guys who were walking down the street, and he said, "Can you help me out? I'll pay you a couple of dollars. Can y'all go pick up this trash?" Well, the Detroit Next employee went off to go do the other stuff that he had to do. The two guys picked up the trash for a minute. And this is my opinion, because of course no one is going to honestly tell you this is what they thought. They got into one of the other houses, which was next door to 4040. And I think they were probably looking for whatever they could get, copper pipe, whatever. And so they started pulling the plaster off the walls, trying to see what was in the walls. And they were dumping that into the debris pile that was directly next door, waiting to be loaded out. That's what triggered their violation, because the removal was not correct. It was not proper. It's not performed by someone who was licensed or certified to do it. And even though they were technically not Detroit Next's employees, Detroit Next was being held responsible for them. And so that's what happened in that case. Their violation was not because they were improperly removing any regulated materials from their particular properties, and they were caught doing some wrongdoing there. This was a case of, you can't control your people all the time, and that's what happened. And it came back to bite Detroit Next in the butt ultimately. Tim, however, is going to have to explain to you the details about what happens through the abatement process.
Yeah, there are a few, general things that you should notice in any abatement job. The first is that there should be signage either in the outside yard area, especially if the abatement is taking place on the exterior of the house, or around the entryways going into the house if the abatement work is actually happening inside. And it generally should be a very clear yellow red tape that says asbestos warning. There should be signs on doorways or on windows to let you know that there is asbestos, particularly asbestos abatement work going on. And you should see a crew of people who are adequately protected from the potential exposure to asbestos on site. They may be wearing respirators, suits, those types of protective equipment. If it's what we would call a class 1 abatement, which is the most serious material, the material that is most likely to cause injury or harm, particularly to those who are immediately affected, you will definitely see those things. You should see people in suits with masks, with helmets, protecting themselves. And they will be coming in and out of the what you call the regulated area through a shower system that helps them get all that material off of them as they're exiting the work area. So you'll see a lot of that stuff in an abatement world. It does depend if the abatement is happening inside the house versus on the outside of the house. If it is all happening inside, you may not see a lot of those things because most of the work should be rightfully inside the house. But you might see if the window has been taken out or if the window has fallen out or is dilapidated, whatever, you might see some plastic coverings over the windows to keep the work inside. So those are some of the things that you would see on an abatement job.
And what's the removal process for those materials? Like, is it, do things get loaded up into a truck, or how are they moved from the house and removed?
They would be bagged on site and then tossed into a disposal container and then hauled off site. Sometimes in large quantity projects, and by large quantity projects, we're usually talking about two materials in particular, plaster and transite. The materials will actually get bundled up and then thrown into a dumpster that is within the regulated area or tied to the regulated area. If it's a smaller quantity material, like a pipe wrap or something that is a little more particular and more narrow to a certain part of the house, they'll put it in a bag and then usually put it in a barrel, and they'll take a barrel out and either put it in a truck or put it in another, a larger container.
And I'm really new to this process. Like, where does this stuff go?
To a landfill.
Okay.
To a licensed type 2 landfill.
Okay. Thanks. The other question I have is like, so as you explain these two particular violations, the way that I'm understanding your explanation weren't necessarily due to improper handling of materials, or
But
like
it was improper handling, but it wasn't as a result of their process. When as Detroit Next or I can't think of the abatement company's name.
Green Environmental Solutions.
Green Environmental. As they were going in and doing the removals, their work was fine. It was able to be inspected, and they received cleared PAVs, which allowed us to actually demolish the properties. It was this one particular type of activity that took place that resulted in their violation. It was just wrong, but it's not the normal process. It's not the normal practice.
And Lajuan brings up a really interesting point, because if you're new to our work, the term PAV may sound a bit foreign to you, but post-abatement verification is a process that we've instituted in the Detroit Demolition program, and it involves a third-party asbestos inspector going in after the abatement contractor to visually inspect the property to ensure that all of the safely accessible materials have been removed. So that's something that we do. One of the other things that we are moving towards, we're not completely there yet, but we are moving in this direction, is just like we have field liaisons who watch demolitions, we are building up our team to have field liaisons dedicated strictly to watch the abatements. So just like you would have a field liaison out there monitoring the demolition, we will have field liaisons visually monitoring the abatements while they happen. And those people will be dressed the exact same way. They'll usually have the polo black shirt on with the safety vest. You'll see them outside the regulated area, and they'll be available for any questions or concerns that anyone might have.
Okay, so I guess I think the final question that I've got on my list is like has to do with violations and notifications of residents. So I think that one of the reasons why we wanted to have the meeting and why we started speaking with EGLE about this was because, frankly, I was shocked that there was no notification of the folks like closest to this when there was a violation of or when there was an issue with asbestos. Like, I guess I was assuming, as I'm over on Cadillac, so I live a few blocks down, and we've got some demolitions happening around us, and I guess I just made the assumption if there was something like an asbestos violation, somebody might knock on my door, or I might get some sort of a warning, not to let my kids go play over there, or something along those lines. And so I just wanted to ask about if first off, if there is, and if we missed it, or like if there are any kind of concerns about notification and letting residents know when these things happen.
So in this particular instance, the instance happened, that particular morning, our field liaison was on site to watch other demos on Beniteau. And she happened to observe that she saw these two particular individuals and they were placing debris in this pile. So she captured it as it was happening. As we were notified, we contacted EGLE. We did everything we were supposed to do. And then we actually set up to have the material removed the same day. So it wasn't a situation where this material was sitting out. It hadn't been there for 2 or 3 days. It was observed taking place. We handled it the same day. What we did have issue with was we didn't know what had happened. We didn't know exactly how that came to be. And so we questioned all of the other demolitions on the block. And so that's why we stopped the contractor from doing any other work, so we could have other contractors come in and we could monitor that debris as it was being removed out, just in case that situation had occurred in other locations. But we didn't have that case. Of the 16 sites that we loaded out, it was still just 40-40. We captured it the same day that it happened. And I would agree with you if the situation were not that we had captured it so quickly. We have taken steps since then. Prior to that time, we never provided any type of information about our violations. Since then, and because of this incident, we now provide the 12-month history of violations for our contractors in the newsletter that you're able to actually access. And it's because of that incident. I'm just being honest with you. Will we go out and notify? Yeah, we will. I can't tell you. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. But like I said, in this particular instance, we caught it right as it happened.
Have there been instances where you haven't caught it and needed to notify folks, or I guess I'm asking about what that process is. Like I said, I'm thinking as a parent, and just I know that there's going to be 8,000 demolitions happening in the city. I assume that the nature of the business, these things are going to happen. There seems to be, at least I'm making an assumption. I'm out of my realm, but I'm assuming that there's a lot of asbestos in the city of Detroit and in these homes, and so I'm just concerned about what that notification process would look like. So
it's a valid point. There is no formal plan for how we notify. It's something that we are trying to work through, as we speak. And it's not because of a asbestos issue, it's because of a dirt issue on a completely different project on the other side of town. And that's because of old program protocols or practices that happened during that time. So we are trying to develop, at what point and how do we notify the residents when things of that nature happen. So I don't really have an answer for you right now, but I can tell you that it is something we're definitely looking into now.
The only thing I would add, if it helps assuage some of your concerns, is that there have been some studies from the University of Michigan on asbestos dispersion from demolition sites, particularly emergency demolition sites. And emergency demolition sites are unique because we can't abate anything prior to the demolition due to the fact that the structure is so unsafe. We can't send somebody in the building. But the researchers from Michigan found, I think, on a total of 20-some emergency demolition sites, they were only able to detect 2 asbestos fibers outside of the property area where the demolition was taking place. So we don't believe that we believe that the wet methods help contain a lot of the asbestos dispersion during the demolition process. And we don't think that there's a large public health risk of asbestos exposure when these demolitions do occur. So we do have some of those studies from the University of Michigan, and we can share those with you as well.
And in all honesty, the door hanger that comes out, if residents had just followed or did follow the directions on the door hanger for the property at 4040, that in of itself would have been the protections that they needed to take.
Okay.
Because you're directed to not go near the demo, not to go in the demo site, stay indoors, stay away from the activity. That in and of itself would have protected the residents from what took place at 4040.
And that actually just triggers one more thing, and then I'll try to stop for a minute, and in case other folks have questions. But so the abatement, I guess the removal of asbestos is, you all, like, so there's still some asbestos in the demolitions when the demolitions are done. This is just removing what can be removed, I guess, if there are asbestos. So it's not like you're getting every little piece of asbestos out and getting rid of it before the demolition happens. You're just kind of removing what can be removed, and then there's still going to be some in there, and the water is supposed to keep that down, right?
Correct. But it's not as if we're just, haphazardly. There's a survey that takes place, and the survey identifies the regulated materials that we are to remove. And there's often debates about what can be assessed and what can't be assessed. And so it's the attempt is, or the intent is for us to capture all of the regulated materials that we can. So it's not as if we just go in and say, well, we took a swipe at it, and that's, that'll be good enough because we're going to capture it with the water. The intent is to get as much as we physically can get to.
Okay. And then so the assumption that I'm making is that what can't be removed is taken care of by keeping it wet, right? So as long as it's kept wet, that's supposed to take care of the asbestos that is remaining that can't be removed or that isn't removed.
Correct.
Okay.
If I could I add something? I'm Joe Gadikey. I'm from EGLE. I'm one of the asbestos inspectors for the state. And just to follow up on that, if the house is in good condition, all of the regulated asbestos should be abated before the demolition. So there shouldn't be any regulated asbestos in a home that's being demolished unless that home is in danger of collapsing or partially in danger of collapsing. And at that point, it's too dangerous to go in and abate some materials. And those are the homes that are demolished or partially demolished with asbestos in place. But typically for a home that's in good condition, the survey will point out all of the asbestos in the home, and all of the regulated asbestos will be abated or should be abated before a demolition occurs. Just to add to that.
Thanks. Okay. So, all right, that I need to readjust for that. Okay, so maybe one of the things that might be helpful for me to get my head around that, we've talked about plaster, we've talked about like wrapping around pipes. Um, I know that there's some tile, right, and things like that that have asbestos, but maybe getting, and I don't want to cut from EGLE's presentation either, because I know you all are going to share some stuff on asbestos as well. But what kind of materials are being removed from a house before it should be demolished?
Okay, so, by the way, we don't really have a presentation. We were just here to answer questions and to show the one slide with info. But yeah, so things like pipe wrap, plaster, forget the name of the insulation material. It just escaped me.
Vermiculite.
Thank you, vermiculite.
Right.
Those items are required to be removed before any demolition. There are certain instances where tile can be left in place, but if it's going to be damaged during a demolition, or if it can expect to be damaged during demolition, then that has to be removed as well. Transite should be removed from the outside of homes before a demolition. Trying to think of anything. Caulking, that'll be removed if it's in bad condition, if it's cracking,
Siding.
or if it's made like to a powder. The transite siding has to be removed. So most of the asbestos has to be removed. In very few circumstances can it be left in during a demolition.
So it sounds like that's a pretty laborious task to get all that stuff out prior to, and it must add a lot of time onto
and money.
The process. Right,
I don't know the money end exactly. That's more of the city, but yeah, it adds a lot of time and effort and cost to have that all removed before a demo.
Okay, so I mean that would be a big motivating factor to cut corners, I guess, and also raises a bunch of my concerns, right?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate the clarity on that. That helps a lot. And
But part of I want to make a quick statement about what you just said. I get what you're saying about people wanting to cut corners, but ultimately our survey is provided by one company. Abatements are performed by another company, and PAVs are performed by another company as well. So it's not as if you can't cut corners. If we let you do the survey, then I could see you cutting corners by saying what's not really asbestos, and you're able to whatever. But we have so many mechanisms and fail safes in place, it's hard for contractors to cut corners at this point.
I was just thinking in the cost and labor, it just sounds like a lot of work to undergo that process, as opposed to just going through and pulling out some stuff and knocking down a house. That's my observation. I think I've talked a lot. Does anybody else have any questions on the call? I could probably come up with a few more.
Only thing I'd like to touch on is moving forward. I understand that you basically were saying that the problems with what was going on with demolition didn't require any more warning than just the next couple of doors. I'm just wondering, moving forward, do you have a plan, since you said you didn't, to inform maybe say a whole block or something? Warm out now, kids are playing, there's dust in there, and you can't always get all the dust, you can't always get all the water. You're talking about somebody out there with basically a small fire hose, trying to water down something that's 35 by 60 or something to that degree, and don't have enough water or pressure to let that down like that, unless you're gonna get out there with a couple hoses on all three sides and start coming at it. You're gonna have dust. I've been watching them do demos. I've seen dust, I smell it, it gets on my vehicle. And that's not just truck traffic or anything like that, because they're the only trucks that really come up through here, supposedly for the most part, on that level. But I mean, moving forward, what kind of plans do you have to make sure, not just the person that, I think people all the way around, 5, 10 houses up the block, everybody on that block should know when there's something going on. It's a lot of us with asthma and different things like that that affect us being around it for 15 minutes. Lady down the street, my eyes are hurt. We don't know whether it's from that or it's from this building behind us. I mean, we're not a part of that. But we have an issue over here. We need every fail-safe in place that we can get beforehand, not after. See, everything we're doing, we're talking about it after this violation has occurred. What are you guys going to do proactively to stop these things from happening to us where we have to talk about it after the fact?
So we have definitely taken a more proactive approach. We meet monthly with the districts. Every month I meet individually with every district and walk them through the process of what to expect and what a demo should look like. We door hanger each demo site 400 feet around, not just 2 or 3 houses on either side. 400 feet from the demo site will receive a door hanger. And that door hanger gives you directions and instructions on what you should do in order to keep yourself. I'm sorry?
That hasn't happened. They just tore down a house, two houses over and across the street. I got no door hanger, no nothing.
What's the address of that demo?
I'm not sure.
I haven't either.
I didn't get a door hanger.
4063. There's the one that just tore down, 4063 Beniteau, and the one next door to that one is a house from there to another one. There's 3 houses on there, and I never seen a door handle either.
And so that's exactly why.
Across the street from my house.
That's exactly why we meet with the community and try and tell you what you should see. And if you don't see it, that's for us to follow up on. That's our main line right there. 3 days before that demo, you should have a door hanger. If it happens, that's when you definitely need us to let us know. I'm about to try and pull up that one right now, though.
Yeah, I've never seen a door hanger either. They've torn down several houses around me and never seen a door hanger.
I can say that on EGLE's Asbestos Niche App page, which is on that slide that we provided to Tim that he'll show at the end here, where you can get that web address. We have what's called a notification search page, and you can get on there and you can search for notification of intent to renovate, which is basically an abatement, or intent to demolish, and you can search by address. So you can just type in Beniteau, and all of the projects coming up on Beniteau will be listed. They have to submit that notification 10 days before they can start the work. So you can look on there and see which addresses are going to be worked on. I can say that they can change that date. They can change the start date if they do it by the end of the day of the original start date. So those dates can change, but at least that can give you an idea of what's coming up within the next week or two, if it's around your house or whichever address or area you'd like to search by.
So we need to do a better job of ensuring that these door hangers are out. I'm not saying that they get out each and every time. They're supposed to be, and that's a reason for a violation to a contractor as well. So that could progressively work you up to suspensions. That's why it's important that we have involvement from the community. If you notice that something does not happen, you need to let us know. We've got to, as a team, we need to figure out what's the fail safe for this. How do we ensure that the door hangers are out, because they're supposed to be out 3 days before, as well as the sign on the property that's supposed to go out 3 days before.
But if you have liaisons on the street observing the demolitions, wouldn't they check to see if the
They're there the
were
day
out?
of. So the door hangers, if they're out 3 days before, door hangers could have been taken down. People come home. Door hangers might not technically still be up the day of the demo.
Yeah, because I mean that's well, I mean, and I appreciate the website and being able to do that, but another big concern is that, I know based on the organizing and the sharing I've done with folks on Beniteau, the majority of folks don't do a whole lot of online stuff. That's one of the reasons why these Zoom meetings are so tough, and why we were trying to ask folks to come out on the street, is because a lot of folks don't, talking about the digital divide and all that, but a lot of folks don't have access to that, so they're super dependent upon like support as far as those notifications go, making sure the door hangers were there, and I have a feeling that if we had more people on, you'd hear this from more folks that there hasn't been that notification.
And that's a very serious thing for us. So I can't give you an answer right now, but we definitely have to come up with what's our fail safe to ensure that these door hangers, this notification is taking place, because you should not have to go to a website. It should be posted. You should know.
And you're only done your 100th demolition with Prop N?
We're past 100 now. We were 100 last week. I'm not exactly certain of the number today.
So I mean, I'm just concerned about, if we're talking, if it's 8,000 demolitions or how many more demolitions we have, what this looks like. So, and I mean, I know we're specific to Beniteau, but I just think about it in a more systemic level, right? Anybody else have any questions? I've got somebody texted me with a question about what type of containment would be set up, like for an asbestos removal to stop it from going airborne, like what with the tile, if it's disturbed in any way, what kind of containment systems would be set up? What would residents want to look for? Again, I go back to, well, if we don't have the notifications and we don't have door hangers being put out, how can we make sure that the containment and these things are being done properly too? But please, if you could just, you may have mentioned that briefly in the presentation, but I wanted to make sure to address the question that somebody texted me as far as what containment looks like.
So Tim, are you still there? So I was hoping Tim was about to pop back on, but definitely you should, for the abatement side, you should have the caution tape. There should be tape out, whether it's red or yellow, and it'll say abatement. It establishes the zone, so you're not supposed to cross that zone. If the abatement is taking place inside of the home, you might not see the containment space because it is inside the home. In some cases, you'll see plastic in the windows, and that acts as the containment area. In some instances, you might actually see a shower zone for them to pass through as they're leaving the containment zone as well. But typically you'll see the tape. It's the red or the yellow tape, and you'll see people working inside of the zone. They'll have on usually the suits. They'll have on respirators, possibly hoods, depending on what type of materials they're removing.
So the containment is more for the folks who are doing the work, then it's not like you put the house in a bubble or anything like that to stop the stuff from going airborne?
Well, the containment is in the area in which they're working. So you won't contain the whole house. If the material needs to be removed is inside of the kitchen, they would contain the kitchen. Okay. But you wouldn't see that from outside of the house.
Yeah, I think the only thing you might see from the outside of the house is if there was a kitchen window that was missing, they would put plastic over the kitchen window and then in the doorways for the kitchen to seal it off.
What about in the case of like the siding like removal? What does that look like?
Typically, they're removing it by hand and they're wetting it down as they're removing it. And they're just trying to take it off in whole pieces and then throw it immediately into a bag or a dumpster.
And one thing I would like to add about the containment or about the asbestos being abated is that you should also see it when it's coming out of the house. It has to be an elite type container. You won't be able to see that it's wet, but it's supposed to be wet in a leak tight container and labeled. And that's just one of the things that you should see when they're taking it out of the house, actually. For instance, plaster or tile or something like that. It'll be in a leak tight container.
Hey, Joe, this is Jeremy Brown. I'm also an EGLE inspector. I'm co-worker with Joe. One thing too, when they're moving friable asbestos out of the house into the dumpster or vehicle, the vehicle or dumpster will also have to be placarded to indicate that asbestos loading is going on at that time, and also a cordoned off area on the outside, because usually they'll park a dumpster to, you know, say if you got 2 or 3 homes right next to each other, they'll park one big dumpster and start putting everything into one, which is perfectly fine. But when they're loading that stuff up, they'll have a cordoned off area so that way no one can get in there. And also, like I said, there'll be signs on the dumpster and or vehicle that is going to be transporting that asbestos waste.
Thank you for that. I'm not, obviously I'm not on the street all the time and don't see that, but I in my time up and down the street, I definitely don't believe I've seen any kind of like asbestos marked vehicles or dumpsters or anything like that. But then again, I don't know the level of removal that's happening. But it you know, it's disconcerting as far as that goes, with the violations, the lack of door hangers and lack of notification. And I think that trust is you know, something that's kind of fragile with the way that residents on Beniteau and throughout the community benefits ordinance area have been treated. So I do know that Chuck is actually on the line. He's on a phone call, and he was muted. I think I wanted to make sure. Is it possible to try to unmute? I think he's the 87 or the 887 number. Is it possible to try to unmute him, or what are the instructions for unmuting? Do you know?
I can ask him to unmute. I can request that he unmute, but I can't force him to unmute.
Do you know what the number is though? Is it like a *6 or a *9 or something like that?
It's just a button I have on my screen that says I can ask him to unmute. So I send him that message.
Okay. I'm trying to make sure, because Chuck is the person that I mentioned with the damaged
Side driveway.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure if he wanted to. I don't like. Orlando, are you able to share? I'm getting texts for messages to me from people who are on the call. So if folks are on the call, feel free to go ahead and do this. I'm not sure how to because you typically I host the zone meeting. Okay, there's Orlando.
Yes, I have a question. I was just trying to have a question for Land Bank. I didn't know if the meeting had anybody that represent Land Bank.
No, this is just demolition. No, this is just demolition department.
Okay. No, I don't have nothing to say.
Okay.
I have a question for the the demolition for property that's on demolition. There's a website or somewhere we can go to.
Was anybody able to capture that?
Cut out a lot of my.
The demolition list also.
All we heard was
I do have.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
It's rough. We're making you out a little bit.
No, I was asking, can y'all get property off the demolition list, or we can go to the demolition property?
I think that you were asking if you could get property off the demolition list. I mean, the answer is potentially. The demolition department doesn't control properties that go on or off the list. If it's a demolition that's been ordered by DC, whether it's an emergency demolition or an ordered demolition, you have to put in a request for a deferment. But that's an action that takes place through building and safety. Buildings and safety, once they make that notification, they're going to notify us that property is no longer and then we don't proceed with any activity. But the only thing that we could do is, direct you. If you had interest to take one off the list, we would direct you back to Philippines.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I really have a couple of questions. The first one is, will your team share the asbestos readings in the homes before and after the mitigation and demolition process?
That would have to be, I want to say that have to be a case by case basis. That would get to be quite extensive.
But with the neighboring community, right, we would need to know, or we should know. It seems to me that it would be something that would be important for, especially for neighbors with any type of lung illnesses, to know, in any neighbors period, to avoid lung illnesses, correct? To know what the asbestos readings are prior to the mitigation and demolition, and afterwards, right? Because I know that it would seem to me that based on my experience with it, that someone would come in afterwards to make sure that there is no more asbestos readings in the home, in the area that's torn down. Would that be made public to the community?
I can't give you an answer on that one right this second. Let me think that one through. And then Miss, I don't want to mess up your last name. Bouye. Miss Bouye, what I'm going to do is I'm taking your name down. Hopefully I can get your contact information too, or I will give my contact information is available. If you can just follow up with me.
You can share that back with Eden. He'll share that back. Okay. Yeah, and then my second question is, during the process, I know everything that was shared thus far with the mitigation containment is for the protection of the workers. But with regard to the protection of the neighboring folks, right? Just us everyday folks. Will your team be spraying the street down, the house next to it, house across from it with water to keep because I know with asbestos, it has to be wet to be removed. And I know I heard one of your team members say that he wanted to emphasize that if the tile has not been shifted, then it should be okay. But that's impossible for that to remain true if you're tearing down a home. The tile will be shifted. I know that even with old homes, if one tile is moved, if it's swept, asbestos is seeping out. So what safety measures are being put in place for the neighboring, for those next door, across the street, right? That's the question.
The protection is the method that we use during demolition. So it is the wet method. And that is ensuring that the structure that we're demolishing is wet enough to contain that dust. I'm not exactly certain what wetting the structure next door would do to prevent the dust from the
So no plastic will be put up at the next door sites, next door windows or anything, or would you be letting people know to put plastic up on their windows?
So that is that's the one failure that I've already accepted, that we must not have been meeting our target. Because the notification will tell you, close your windows, stay inside.
But closing the windows doesn't do it. We still would have to put plastic up. That's part of the mitigation process.
That's not what we've had a study that was performed, and the study basically said that the amount of asbestos that it leaves from the demo site is 2 fibers, and that's based on emergency demos, which we don't do any abatement. These properties that we're abating, especially in the Beniteau area, we're abating them before we do the demolition. We're not treating them as emergency demos, which we don't abate. And so the results would be even less based on the study that was performed for us on the emergencies.
I see. So I just heard you say, thank you for that answer. The amount of, in your studies, it came back with the amount of asbestos fibers, right? So that tells me there has been a reading done prior to. So once again, I got to ask the same question I started with. Will you be sharing those asbestos readings of the amount of fibers in the air and from that home prior to it, demolition, and after demolition?
That was a study of just a select amount of properties. That study is available on our website.
But that study does not reflect the homes in particular that would be demolished. Is that what you're telling me?
No, ma'am. We wouldn't be doing that type of study for all 8,000 demos. No.
Okay. But for your folks to go in there and for them to know that asbestos is in the home, they would have to do it. They would have to do a reading.
No, they do a survey. So they identify the materials based on the survey. They don't necessarily take a reading to determine
To
if
see
there's
the levels of the asbestos in the home? They're not doing that?
They're taking a reading, or they're doing a survey to determine the actual materials that's in the home.
I see. Okay.
They'll actually collect pieces of material, put it in a Ziploc bag, and send it to a lab to see if the material itself has any asbestos in it, like a floor tile. Or
Right.
like
So once they do
that.
that, well, thank you for sharing that, Tim, because once they do that, then that tells me the tile has been disturbed because they would have to take a sample. That means asbestos would be leaking. So I would think, because I know when I've had it done on numerous occasions, then what happens is that they are either able to tell you the levels of how dangerous it is to that home. And so because you're demolishing the home, the question still stands for the folks surrounding. I understand the precautions that you all share so graciously, but the real question is, what about precautions for community?
These are the safest demos in the country. I mean, it's because of the amount of abatement that we do. Other communities don't abate as much as we do. Some communities don't abate at all, and that's acceptable for their area. But we've decided to take the route where abatement, then demo is our protocol, and it's because of that we're definitely holding the public safety as a priority. Part of the thing that we mentioned before was sometimes there's instances where parts of the property are not accessible, and that's the only reason why we would leave materials in the building. But under a contracted demo that has abatement scheduled as a part of the demo, that material is removed before the demolition takes place. It's only in those instances when we do emergency demos, or like I said, areas that we cannot assess inside the property, that potential materials are left behind. But the study that was done by the University of Michigan showed that even during those emergency situations, there was only 2 fibers that were detectable outside of the demolition zone during the demo process. And it was because of the amount of water that we put on the demo site before, during, and after.
I see. Okay, thank you so kindly for your answers. I'll wait. We'll look to hear back from you regarding the sharing of the asbestos readings in the surveys for the properties being torn down. You said you would let us know if you could get that information.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
One thing I would like to make more clear is that the containment is meant to keep all of the asbestos and fibers in the home and contained while they're doing asbestos removal work. So the containment system they have fans, it creates a negative pressure situation inside the home if they're removing, for instance, plaster. And that does protect the environment. Unless there's a breach in that system or there's something wrong, there shouldn't be any air or fibers or anything escaping that house while they're doing the abatement, the asbestos removal work. So those containments do protect the environment from asbestos exposure. Just to clear that up.
Yeah, the actual worker protection is the respirator.
Correct.
The body covering, the Tyvek suit. That's what protects the laborer who's working in that space from the asbestos release.
Correct.
I did have a clarifying question that I was texted about. Could you possibly share the number or the information for who folks should contact to get homes taken off the demo list or to contest a demolition?
Let me look it up real quick. Unless Nick, do you have it? If we were in the office, I know what the number is.
BC's number or the number?
The BC's number.
Okay. That's the number I have is 313-224-8255. 2733.
And that's BC?
Yes.
Building safety, something.
Building
Engineering.
safety, engineering, environmental department.
Okay, thanks. I'll text that on to the person on the who texted me the question. Okay. Any other questions from residents? So, I mean, I guess just to follow up, it seems like the primary source information and notification are these door hangers, and they're the ones that are giving folks the precautions and not to go near the house, and to keep your windows closed, and not to let your kids go play in the, I don't know what it says, right? I haven't seen one of the door hangers up close, but so that's the primary source of notification, and that's what we're missing on Beniteau.
We do also encourage you to use the text message system too, if you want to sign up for the text message alerts.
Right.
And those will go right to your phone.
That's great for folks on the call, but for folks in real time who are living next to it, they don't necessarily know to get on a text message line, I guess so I understand the practicality of folks who know how to use that system, but for folks who are just living next to a demolition, that doesn't really help too much. If it's on the door hanger and the door hanger is never there, that doesn't help either. Okay. Any other questions? I feel like I talked way too much, but I really appreciate it. I've been waiting for like two months to have this conversation, so that's where all my questions come from, is just kind of writing things down when I wake up in the middle of the night.
I do mind washing dishes.
And on that page that Tim showed at the end with EGLE's information, there is a PEAS hotline number that you can call if you see any violations or potential violations, or you see something that you think might be wrong. You can call that number and it will be given to one of us inspectors, and we're usually out that day to check out those PEAS calls. So you can call that number if you ever see anything that you think isn't going right.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? Hi, my name's Ellen Heinitz. I'm the Chief of Staff for State Senator Stephanie Chang, who represents the area. She had another event that she'd scheduled a couple months ago tonight, so she asked me to sit in on this. What I wanted to ask, well, I have a question for the city and I have a question for EGLE. The question for EGLE is, how many asbestos inspectors do you have working in the city, and how many do you have working in the other parts of the state? Because Senator Chang has been long concerned that there aren't enough. And the other question I have is for the city, when you have contractors that you work with, asbestos abatement contractors who have had violations, is there a point at which you stop hiring that contractor?
So we have a progressive discipline pilot program. And so, yes, it can get to a point where we eventually cut ties. But there is a progression, and it's based on the degree of the violation. So there's different, a grade 5 would get you out of the program tomorrow, where a grade 1 is a letter of discipline, and you might get 10, and then you'll get your 30-day suspension, and then you progress from there. So yes, there is a discipline policy in which, you would work yourself right out of the program if you continue to not perform well.
As far as the number of inspectors, there are 3 that are assigned to Southeast Michigan, not just Detroit, but Southeast Michigan. We have 3 in Lansing that handle Lansing and the west side of the state. Sometimes, usually once every other week or so, they'll come down to help us out in Detroit. We have another inspector for Northern Michigan and then one for the UP. So
Okay, I know there was an audit a couple of years ago that revealed how very few asbestos inspectors there are. And so Senator Chang developed legislation 4 years ago surrounding that. And one of the things it would do is help raise money to pay for more asbestos inspectors. So I wanted to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood knew that that was something she's been working on. Actually, the package of bills made it halfway through the process, but didn't quite make it out all the way to the governor's desk last term during a very strange, legislative session that was shortened by a lot of other concerns. But the bills have been reintroduced this term and have already started moving in the House, and Senator Chang will get them into the Senate and then move them along. And we hope that that will help. Because I can tell you that the system and the notification that the Demolition Department in Detroit described is not how it works in many other parts of the state, even in many other parts of Senator Chang's district downriver. So I think it's something that we would like to see expanded. And, I love the idea that the door hangers should be out ahead of time. And this isn't a Southeast Michigan problem. There's been well-documented cases in other parts of the state where contractors weren't doing things right. And so, there was improper abatement, improper removal, especially improper worker protections. So it's something that she's, paid attention to, and she's made sure that her colleagues in the legislature know is not a Detroit problem. It's not a Southeast Michigan problem. It happens everywhere. So I just wanted to thank you, and even thank you for thinking of us and having somebody from our office sit in on this.
Well, and I'll share that, I'm particularly interested in this notification process, and wondering if there's ways that, into that legislation there can be some sort of a demand over notification of, when there is an asbestos demolition project. And, if there is a violation, I think it's vital that neighbors are informed that, that there has been exposure, that there was potential of exposure based upon public health issues. And like Robert shared and like a few other folks have mentioned, we've got really high asthma rates in this neighborhood. Public health issues are really a great concern, and we all know how in COVID, how folks who are having respiratory issues and exposed to different levels of particulate matter are more vulnerable. So it becomes a really big issue. So I appreciate the senator's advocacy about this. I guess based on what was just described, I guess I have a follow-up question about the grade levels of, the disciplinary grade levels that were mentioned. Like, with Detroit Next, it seems like on the street there hasn't been proper notification, and I'm wondering like what grade level of disciplinary action like that puts folks at, because obviously they had these 2 violations last year that kind of brought this whole discussion, and now it appears as though they have failed to notify residents and get those door hangers that are really the key to folks knowing what's going on up on the street. So I guess where does that put us with that? And then also I just want to follow up with a question for EGLE about, where can residents, file a complaint about this lack of notification, and if that's a state level thing, or if that is just something that is a city level state to file a complaint like more formally about the failure to notify.
So for us, the door hangers would have been a grade 1 violation. And so they would have been issued a letter of discipline, but if there were multiples, that would have progressed up. In the Beniteau properties for Detroit Next, they had a total of 34 properties that they were demolishing. And if we just assume that they didn't notify for any of theirs, it would have been considered one instance. But we are going to look into it to see if they have any type of proof or evidence that they actually placed door hangers. Because sometimes contractors will take pictures of the door hangers as they place them out. Especially with the bond properties, we've had contractors who've been photographing themselves actually placing the door hangers. So we will give them a chance to provide that information first before anything will be done. But it would be a grade 1. It wouldn't be cause for termination or suspension out of the program.
And as far as what's required at the state level, I believe when you're talking about being notified, you're talking about those door placards. Those are the responsibility of the city. That's not a state regulation or anything like that. That's not in the NESHAP. What is in the NESHAP, though, is they do have to notify 10 days before they begin any work for abatement or a demolition. And like I said, that's available on our website, and you can search that notification system whenever you want to see if they're going to be near your house or near an area that you're concerned about.
And just for clarity, that notification requirement that Joe's talking about, that's actually a federal requirement. That the federal NESHAP, the National Emission Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants, it derives from the Clean Air Act and amendments to the Clean Air Act. So that is actually a nationwide regulation.
Correct.
Can we get a copy emailed to me of this asbestos regulations in Michigan document that you provided, and I can send that out to the residents as well?
Sure.
And you can see the number right there in the middle of this page where it says complaints. That's the PEAS hotline that I talked about, Pollution Emergency Alerting System. And that phone number, if you have a complaint about anything, you can give that number a call, and it'll get directed to one of the inspectors that are doing the city of Detroit.
Hey, Eden, this is Jeremy Brown with EGLE again. If it's all right with Triple D here, I'm gonna turn my video on. There we go. Now you can actually see me. I'm gonna try to share my screen. I'm gonna show you a web page that we have that's not. See, I don't even have it up. Let me get it up, and then I can share it with you here. It'll take just a second. But what it will do is this page actually lists the violations that our department has actually issued to different companies. And they're on there pretty well, basically permanently. And give me a second here, and we'll get these. Okay, let me share my screen. Let's see if I can get this done right. I always have a heck of a time getting it done in Teams, let alone. All right, this one. Share. Okay. If you can get this webpage, it's www.michigan.gov. It's /EGLE. I'll leave it up here a bit so you can write this down, Eden. If you go to this webpage, on here there's a lot of different information about facility violations. Our asbestos violations are right down here where it says, and for asbestos files only. This is about permits, violations, emission testing. You can search by either the contractor or you can do it by owner. I'm just going to click on one here to show you, kind of just briefly go through, and it's going to load up this page if the internet works fast enough. Well, there, okay. Now, they're all in alphabetical order. you can pick any company that you want, and you can actually be able to scroll through. I'm just gonna randomly pick one here. Bebeck Environmental. This is, well, of course it would be probably one I issued, but it'll give you the address right here of where the violation occurred, the city that it occurred in. And what you can do is over here on view, you can actually click on that, and then you can actually bring up the actual violation that was issued to that company. This is all public knowledge, not trying to hide anything in there. And then you can actually scroll through and read why this company got a violation from EGLE. Or in this case, I believe we were DEQ at the time that this was issued. Oh yeah, it was by me. Excuse me. And it will go through and state the violations of why violation was issued for that address, what was found, and like that. The replies are not on there. Those can be FOIA'd, but this will at least give you information on different companies, on whether or not they have been given a violation. We tell this to different cities and programs such as land banks, or now the Detroit Demolition program there, that they can double check a company by just looking to see through these to see if they've been issued a violation in the past. Hopefully even this helps you out a little bit. I can go back. There we go. Go back to that website if you didn't get all that down. Excuse me. But if you did a search for EGLE and did air quality source information, that's what this page is about.
So is it searchable by date?
No, it's only by contractor and owner right now.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
Granted, we're in the process of coming up with a whole brand new system, but we're talking at least a couple years or more before it's implemented. It's massive on how you can search for these things. And that very well may be an addition later on that you could actually sort by date. We're not sure how that's going to look just yet. That's still in the planning stages.
Yeah, this was one of the issues Senator Chang found when she was looking into us a few years ago, is that she wanted to make it so that it was easier to figure out who the bad actors were in the business, and to build on the work that the inspectors at EGLE were already doing. The issue we run into legislatively, obviously, is that the contractors don't want to do anything more than they're doing, and the local government groups, not necessarily the city, but like I said, the different townships, villages, and they don't want to have to hunt all this information down every time. So I think the legislative solution that she's proposed would put the onus on these contractors to sign an affidavit that says, hey, I haven't had, any violations, or I haven't had, I've only had this many. And to help fund some of this is that every time the contractors are going to do an asbestos abatement, they would pay a fee to EGLE. She set the fee in to be in line with what the other Midwest states are paying. It's way less than Illinois, I think about the same as Indiana and Ohio maybe. And that would help fund more inspectors to be able to keep doing this work.
Eden, our 12-month running violation report would capture the violations that our contractors have received while doing our work. So you would see the EGLE violation. If it was a health and safety that was issued to them, it'll be in our report that's attached to the newsletter. So you'll see it there. If you should want any additional information, if you want to actually see the violation that was issued, we can provide that to you so that you can, see what that violation exactly was. But the report details exactly out what it was. So we kind of done this work for you, and we provide it every month in the monthly newsletter.
Yeah, I'm actually, and I thank you for sharing, Mr. Brown. I'm based on my research on green environmental, I'm familiar with the page that you showed, because I have been trying to put together a dossier on the folks doing the demolitions on Beniteau, just trying to do my research and figure out what was going on. And out of my concern as being a resident in the city and all the demolitions that are going to be happening, I just wanted to understand the process more. The reason why I asked for the dates was because they would make things like just so much easier to do that. But if you've got something that's driven by, if the city's putting together something driven by dates, do you have a rough number of how many violations you've had in the last 12 months?
Tim, do you remember? It's
Offhand, I don't. I would have to look at the report.
Okay. I mean, and that's the first time I've seen that page, so I'll pull it up and take a look and share it with the residents as well. I think I've exhausted the majority of my questions about. I mean, we've covered the process as far as like what a good demolition should look like. We've got the numbers to that we need to notify the city and also notify EGLE in case we see anything that doesn't look right, which was a big concern. We've, I think, raised a lot of concern over the failure of the contractors to put door hangers out, and I hope that we've raised concern about just what a problem that is, because the entire system kind of breaks down if those door hangers aren't there.
I hear you. And we're not going to just brush it to the side. We're going to definitely come up with how do we improve to ensure that notification is happening.
I am a little bit confused as to why we'd still be at a grade 1 with the disciplinary process if they already had violations. So I'm wondering if maybe not notifying, if that's the case, would take them up to a few grades there. It seems super problematic that they've already got violations listed and there's a failure to notify. So I just want to lift that up again. We've talked about the fact that there's massive public health issues on the block and throughout the entire city of Detroit. So having that notification is vital to the health of the residents. And if that doesn't happen, then we have, like I said, a complete breakdown. Can
I make one quick point? So the health and safety violation that they received, that actually was a grade 3 violation, and they received a 30-day suspension from the program because of it. Mm-hmm. The failure to hang the door hangers, that's actually a lower grade offense, but it's a grade 1. And there's multiple occurrences of that type of violation to happen that would progress them up. The health and safety, we didn't go easy on them. It was a 30-day suspension. They actually were not able to submit any bids or be awarded any bids during that 30-day suspension period as well.
Yeah, but then didn't they turn around and get like a $250 million contract or something like that? I mean, I'm just saying they seem to have gotten a large contract after the violations were.
It is a violation, but it's not. Like I said, the occurrence was not. It was not an intent. Type of, they weren't intentionally demolishing structures with asbestos in it, which is that's a different grade violation. That's more of a 5, which would get you out of the program tomorrow. You have to allow contractors to, this was a mistake. I mean, it was clearly a mistake. We were able to capture at the time that it happened. They were penalized for that mistake, but it was not enough to actually remove them from the program.
Understood. Thank you. Is there anything else as far as I know, EGLE? I feel like the city has answered a bunch of questions. Are there any other things from EGLE that we should hear about?
I was just gonna note, my name is Janine Camilleri. I'm the Air Quality Enforcement Supervisor, and I'm really happy that we could schedule this tonight and have everybody available to answer questions that the community may have. And I appreciate that you guys reached out to us a few months ago to make this happen, Eden, and everybody in the community. And also just wanted to acknowledge the time spent with the city of Detroit as well. This is the first time we've ever done this. And so thank you for asking the questions, and continue to ask questions. We tried to make information available, but I'm sure there's a lot of improvement that can be made along the way. And I just wanted to say, if you guys have questions in the future, you can reach out to us and to the folks that attended tonight as well. And we really appreciate that you guys are out there and looking and trying to identify, what is a good demolition, what's a bad demolition, and learning and letting us know when you have concerns.
Thanks, Janine.
Okay, I'm April Lumley, and I'm with the Detroit office. I'm the district supervisor, and I just wanted to share something with you, if I could, for just a second, because my specialty is public health. I've got a PhD in it, so that is a major concern for me. And I would just, while this was going on, I just had the chance to see Michigan and emergency demolitions in Detroit and low risk of asbestos exposure. I know Alfred Franz Blau, my professor at getting my master's at the University of Michigan in environmental health sciences. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention, this particular article that is out there. And I know it's with the School of Public Health, University of Michigan, EDU. And so, research for that, the research that they've done in asbestos demolitions in Detroit. I think that's what's been discussed, and mentioned that, Detroit has a very, very good program in this particular sector, and that seems to be the case. So, but as far as right here in our own backyard at the University of Michigan, I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you very much.
And that was the study that we were referencing before.
Thank you.
I figured. And that was done in, at least this was reported in March of 2020. So it's very recent. I mean, it's not 10 years old or anything like that. It's fairly recent, within the last year.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Hi, my name is Karen Kajia Mills, and I'm showing up as Lindsay Wells. I'm not sure why. I work for EGLE, and if you ever have any questions, feel free to call me, okay? And I'll give you my number.
Dropped off.
Kind of cutting out. Can you put it in the chat?
I think the chat's turned off.
517.
Oh, 517.
And if any of the residents want to call me, 517-256-0880.
And I'm sorry, what is your role? I didn't get that part.
I work for EGLE, Air Quality Division, and I'm the program manager for asbestos statewide.
She's our supervisor.
I'm not your supervisor. April's your supervisor.
Well, I think I would definitely be interested in following up and have a few questions to ask based upon this conversation, and particularly interested in attempting to do some advocacy around this notification process, just because I really feel it's important that the residents are more aware of what's going on, and as I've mentioned a few times, with 8,000 demolitions planned in the city of Detroit, that's like just a huge number. And even though we see the study that was just put up on the screen there, I don't know what how many demolitions we've had in the past, but it seems like a huge increase. So just concerned about advocacy, and as I said, based upon the experience of the residents on Beniteau and the way this has gone down is just a small sampling. you know, I've got some concerns. I took notes, and I've tried to document as much as I possibly can, and I'll share that my next steps would be to take all this and get it into an email format, and we do a lot of canvassing on the street, so we'll try to print this information out and get the numbers out to residents, so if they do see issues, you know, they can give folks a call and make sure that the city's aware of the issues, make sure that EGLE's aware of issues, and so on and so forth. So I really do appreciate this. I feel like this has been a couple months in the works, and you know, with I want to also recognize Nick from the Environmental Law Center, who kind of introduced all of us and kind of got this ball rolling based upon some questions that I asked him. So that's Nick Leonard, who isn't here this evening, but was kind of instrumental in getting this all going. So I want to thank them as well, and thank the city for, you know, presenting the information and hosting the Zoom and all of that.
I just wanted to note, we appreciate too that you guys were accommodating and having this meeting through Zoom. We just couldn't quite yet meet in person. So obviously we know that's the best way to meet. It's just, you know, we're just not quite there yet. So we appreciate that you guys were able, we know that there's a larger group of folks that you guys normally meet with. So we appreciate you guys who could participate in sharing that information with your neighbors and the community members.
Thank you.
And just really quickly, I wanted to thank you for allowing us to come out. You made a question about, you didn't know how many demolitions had been done. The city has completed over 20,000 demolitions prior to our efforts to knock down this last 8,000. Well, the 8,000 that we know of, we know we'll still have approximately another 6,000 to go after that. But the previous program managed to get down a total of, it's over 20,000 demos.
Thank you. Okay.
And currently under Prop N, we're at 120 now.
120. Great, thanks so much. I think I'm worn out. This is like my fourth Zoom today. So I don't know unless there are any other questions.
No, we have our list of to-dos. We'll follow up with all of you and get all of this stuff to you as soon as we can. We'll aim, in order to give everybody a long break over the holiday weekend, we'll try to get this done by the end of the week, but we'll get it to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks. And I appreciate everybody's time tonight and helping to bring this all together, you know, with the help of getting, you know, folks on the block more informed and aware of the process. So thank you all for the.
Yeah, I think, you know, I can tell you right now, I mean, Lajuan's first choice would probably be to do this in person, not over Zoom. So, you know, she's always telling us to get out there. So that's where we would rather be, and hopefully we can do that one day soon.
Yeah, we'll be out there. Summer's coming. Well, I mean, summer's here, but us being able to be out in the open air is coming, right? So appreciate that. Thank you all.
All right, everyone have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.